A police officer pulls a guy over and sees two penguins in the back seat. He says, "Sir, you can't just drive around with endangered animals. Take them to the zoo." The man nods and drives away. Next day, same guy, same penguins, only this time they're wearing Hawaiian shirts and sunglasses. The officer says, "I thought I told you to take them to the zoo." The guy replies, "I did. Today we're going to the beach." and that's the opening salvo in an article written by Ron Laurie.
Greg Laurie.
Pastor Greg Laurie. And he writes in this article, funny, but also painfully familiar. That's how many Christians live, singing, serving, studying, but missing the main objective. And the main objective is still the gospel. And he says Jesus didn't say, consider sharing the gospel. He said, go. And studies tell us that 95% of Christians have never led anyone to Christ. Only 2% have invited unchurched people to church last year, just 2% of us. We recommend taco trucks, Netflix shows, apps for gym workouts. When it comes to Jesus, suddenly we fall strangely silent. Okay, why is that? Oh, first of all, we have to introduce Bishop Peter Hansen from St. Augustine Canterbury Church.
I'm the penguin in the black shirt.
Yes, you're the penguin in the black shirt. Oh, I love that.
Where am I?
Okay, so why is that? Why some stay quiet? Well, give us what you think the reason is. Why do people don't preach the gospel very much?
I think we're all so well bred to know what to do and what not to do, what's socially acceptable and what is not. There seems to be a social contract in and among good people in America not to bother each other with religion. That's sort of out of line. It's like coming up to a stranger and saying, "Who did you vote for, Trump or Harris?" And I'm going to have an attitude depending on what you say. I mean, that's rude, although it's a way to get to know somebody. But it is very interesting. I had a rider with me. I gave him a ride someday, and he said, "I'm an evangelical Catholic." I said, "That's interesting." And he said, "Yeah, I tell everybody I know about Jesus. I just have to do it." And I said, "That's wonderful. I wish I could say the same." And he said, "If it was only about money, it would be so easy." I said, "What?" He says, "I've won and lost fortunes twice." He says, "I don't care about money anymore, but I understand it." He says, if let's say, if the means by which to get into heaven was to have a bag of $1 million and present that at the door, you buy your way with $1 million, and you found out about a warehouse where there's a window and you can just walk up and they'll hand you a bag with $1 million in it. Now, would you go to bed right away? Or would you spend the whole night calling everybody on your address list and tell them where that window is? Would you tell everybody you know in the world where to get their $1 million so they could go to heaven? So we all understand that. We say, "That's really nice of you. Thank you. I don't mind that you woke me up at midnight because I'm going to get in the car and go down there." But because it's about some man who lived long ago, and it's debatable, and nice people go to church, but nice people stay home too, and we just don't bother each other with that. There's a social contract that you've violated somebody.
I like the social contract that you said, because sometimes we hear so much about separation of church and state. And sometimes I think we feel like, well, there should be a separation between church and conversation. Like there's a separation between, like as you said, who you voted for and conversation. We can't discuss these kinds of things because it's just not socially, it's socially frowned upon.
Well, it's because there's division. So you've heard it like, when your family gets together, Thanksgiving and other things, remember, don't talk religion and politics. That seems to be this unwritten rule, like the bishop was saying, like somehow talking religion is like taboo. If you guys want to get along with somebody, whatever you do, don't start talking religion or politics. But he's right. We are, God says we are to go. We are to go and tell others the good news. Make disciples and then baptize them. So,
Laurie writes in his article, one of the reasons he says some stay quiet out of fear. Rejection stings. We don't want to be labeled judgmental or pushy. But what if they're not offended? What if the person you're speaking to is grateful and hungry for hope? Yeah, it, you know, I like to think that I'm well spoken, and I like to think, and sometimes I get lucky, and I am, but I still have that fear of what will people think? They think you're a crazy person. You're nuts. You're one of those crazy Christians that's trying to push people to Jesus, and you're one of those crazy Jesus people. There's some people that actually will view somebody who goes and talks about Jesus openly as being sort of, and you'll get an eye roll.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think there's that fear. I think the fear of it's more than a fear of rejection. If somebody just said no, I don't accept what you say, but there's a greater fear, which is you're going to get an eye roll, and people are going to think, well, you're one of those crazy Christian lunatics. I think that's a part of it too. I don't know.
Yeah, well, sometimes it takes being a little crazy to get things done. There was a story of a man in Australia who went up to 10 people a day and asked them out of the blue. He was shabby. He just a street guy, and he said, if you were to die today, what would be the state of your soul? And then walk away. That story got carried back to England and was shared like 3 different churches with different people in the ears of an evangelist guy from America who heard that being said at several different places, and he himself had a chance to go to Sydney, Australia, and he was looking for the shabby guy. And he finally found him at the end of the day out there, and he says, stop, don't tell me. You're about to ask me if I were to die today, what would be the state of my soul? He said, well, that's right. How did you know that? He said, I heard this story 3 times in England, and the guy just burst out crying.
Mm-hmm.
He said, 10 years ago, Jesus Christ saved my life. And I vowed to him there that every single day of my life I would share that with 10 people. I'm not eloquent. I don't know how to tell anybody anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just came up with this little saying, and that's what I say.
Right, that's a good saying.
It is good. It brings it around.
Say it again, just in case.
If you were to die tonight, what would be the state of your soul?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why I take funerals very seriously when I lead them.
That is a great opener.
Yeah.
That's a great opening line.
Some of the reasons why people don't share, in my experience, is everybody's number one fear. Usually, on most posts, what comes out is I'm afraid of public speaking. So I've had some people, when I've given messages about evangelism going out, I've had some people, no, Pastor, I'm just not a really good speaker. I'm afraid to talk to people. I don't like getting in front of people, and it's very difficult for me. But the simplicity of that one line is perfect. And, here's one more thing. There's a saying that's attributed to St. Francis of Assisi, and it basically says, go out and spread the gospel, and if you have to, use words.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the thing about it is people can hear the gospel or see the gospel in how we live, in our lifestyle, and how we talk, and our actions, our words, our deeds. And we don't have to really say something to a lot of times. I've had people, a quick story, there's a girl that I knew, I work with, and she asked me what I was doing for the weekend because we were working. And I said, well, I'm going to school. I'm going to school on the weekends to become a pastor. She stops me and goes and says, listen, don't tell me about God. I'm a good person. Don't tell me I'm a sinner. I've got my own relationship with my own God. And I said, I didn't say anything. I just said I'm going to school to become a pastor. And I was still working a full-time job at the time. But we became real good friends. She became real good friends with my wife. And when our church opened up, there she was. And I said, hey, I really said, what are you doing here? She goes, well, you're my friends, and I'm coming to support you. You guys are opening up your church. I just want to support you. Okay, great. Well, she came a few times and a few times more, and then she's in our house one day saying, just because of the way you guys are so loving, especially my wife, I just wanted you to know I gave my life to Christ during one of your services. And I'm going, great.
You never know.
And I never walked up to her and said, what are you doing?
You better
if you die,
take a choice.
Make a
you
choice.
You don't belong here. You're not a Christian.
Her faith came by hearing the word of God.
Here's a reason I think that some of us can relate to, and we'll try to get this in the break. Others stay quiet out of insecurity. We're afraid we'll get stumped. What if they ask a question we can't answer?
Yeah.
Sure.
That would scare people. You're not trying to win a debate, Larry writes. You're trying to win a soul. And in 1 Peter 3:15 says to be ready with an answer with gentleness and respect. Be winsome if you want to win some. Oh, I like that. Be winsome if you want to win some. I think that's a big part of it too. Somebody's going to stump you. They're going to give you one of those Bible questions that's going to be, yeah, but because people say there's contradictions in the Bible, and
Right.
there's really not. But somebody believes it, and if you don't have the knowledge to be able to support that, you've lost them. So I think there's people that are insecure about that they're going to be stumped.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they're going to be beat at Christianity poker. Or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Not have the cards.
Some of us assume everyone's already heard the news.
Hey.
Biblical literacy is the new normal. This person was recently in Germany, where only 2% of the population identified as Christian. That can't
Yeah,
be.
illiteracy, I believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In America, over half of adults say they'd be open to a conversation about faith. Among friends and family, that jumps to 90%. So the hard truth, some of us don't speak up because we don't really care. We see unbelievers as enemies instead of captives. Ooh, I like that. We see unbelievers, and we do that. We do that sometimes on this show, and I think that we have to be very careful about that.
Sure.
We see people who are unbelievers as the bad guys,
Yeah.
and maybe they just don't know.
Right.
That's a good point. We're supposed to love our enemies, and we're supposed to love our neighbors as ourselves. First, love God, of course. But yeah, you're right. But the main thing is, I've talked to a lot of people that just said they're just afraid, or like you said, they're afraid of being stumped. I'd probably put that up there as number 1 and 2.
Penn Jillette, atheist, smart guy, says, if you believe in heaven and hell, how much do you have to hate someone not to proselytize? That's a hard one.
Right. I'm relegating you to hell because I don't care about you.
Right.
Right. I'd rather you didn't come to heaven and spoil it for me.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We're gonna maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this. We'll see where it goes. But we also want to talk a little bit about the 4th of July that's coming up, and we're going to do that after this short time out.
Religion in the news.
All right, welcome back. We're talking about evangelizing and how the people who don't wear collars or who aren't in the pulpit, the lay, don't do enough to try to bring people to Jesus. And if you were to say who's guilty, my hand would go up almost immediately.
Well, my hand goes up too with a collar on because I get the sense that people expect me to do that, and therefore they're already in resistance as soon as they see me, which happens a lot. I mean, there's a sense that I'm a signal that I'm the Christian guy, and therefore, what is he going to do? And I got to surprise them with just being a good guy. They aren't going to care what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
And if you show people just humanity, as Alfredo was saying, we got to be loving it. The Francis model was to preach the gospel always, and if only necessary, use words, live in front of them to surprise them.
Yeah.
Surprise them with love.
Greg Laurie goes on to write, don't tell me you can't do something. God can use you.
Yeah.
He calls the unlikely. And I didn't know this. Did Moses stutter?
Yeah, he had a speech impediment. Yeah, he complained when God called him to go into Egypt. He said, "But I'm a bad diction and have a speech impediment." Yeah,
And that's why he sent his brother Aaron
yeah, to be the speaker.
with him to be the speaker. Yeah.
Jeremiah was too young. I don't know how young Jeremiah was at the time, but apparently he was too young. Peter denied Jesus, yet Peter was used to preach.
Yeah.
That wasn't good. Lazarus, he was dead.
Yeah,
No excuses. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Nice turn of phrase.
That's right.
Anything else to figure out? And here's the best part. He goes on to write, there's joy in sharing. And that when you help bring somebody to Christ, that's got to be one of the greatest feelings imaginable, to know that that's one thing that, I don't want to say I envy, because I don't envy anything, but I have great admiration. The knowledge that you go to bed at night knowing that you've helped bring people to Christ. That must be a great, great feeling as ministers, to have that type of satisfaction when you put your head on the pillow at night.
Right.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
need to love people out loud, and let them see that's how Christians are.
Right.
The biggest thing that they see in us is the change. Like we have a deacon, Curtis, and he's a football coach for many, many years here in Chico. And when he came to Christ, like 7, 8 years ago, he had people walking up to him, during the games, after the games and stuff, said, "You're different. What's going on? I don't see you, the anger, and you're not cussing, and what's going on?" And he would just tell him, I have a relationship with Jesus Christ now. And that's just the truth.
Yeah.
And he even had a woman come up to him one time and said, "You're different. You've received Christ, haven't you?" And it's just amazing kind of things,
I think the knowledge, the awareness that God is watching you and is with you at all times, I think kind of leads you to stay. I don't want God seeing me sin or having my thoughts or having me, to observe what's going on. Because when you don't have God with you, you don't even think that he's even watching you. But when you know he's there, it does change things. It changes the way you do things, I think.
It does.
There's a famous story in Iran where two Muslim men are comparing their marriage lives, and the one is saying, "I am so sick and tired of my wife. She's on my case all the time. I'm going to get another wife," because they can marry like 4 times. And the guy says, "Tell you what you do. Marry a Christian woman. They're much better to live with. They're happy all the time. They love you. They forgive you for things. They don't harp on stuff all the time. It's a Christian woman you want." Now, he was saying that out of behavior and nothing to do with the faith or the truth of it. And this guy was going to get harem going.
Yeah.
But he's recommended to marry a Christian because that was the understood thing.
Wow. Yeah. Good idea.
We've got about 6 minutes left in the program. We don't want to forget about the 4th of July is coming up. America turns 249 years old, and
Wow.
and we have this discussion frequently. What's the role of the church when it comes to patriotic holidays? What is enough? What is going too far? I try not to give an opinion. I'm hesitant about doing too much flag waving inside the church, although outside the church is wonderful, by the way. It's wonderful to be patriotic outside the church. I'm not so sure we're supposed to be patriotic inside the church. What's your thoughts on this?
I caught a little criticism once for preaching on the 4th of July about Fort McHenry. They're sitting there in Baltimore, where this very beautiful, interesting, configured architecturally, this fortress that had this huge, gigantic flag flying above it. And the deal was, if they were able to withstand the barrage from the British ships, and the flag didn't fall, then they'd won the War of 1812. The Brits wanted to take over America again. They burnt Washington and the White House down to the ground. We were in trouble, and these soldiers stayed in that fortress as it was getting bombarded all the night. And that's when Francis Scott Keyes wrote our national anthem. And I preached about that, and I thought it's an inspiring topic. And here's this flag with all these holes in it, and it's in the Smithsonian. You can go see that.
I've
flag.
been there. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but you got heat for that.
I got some heat for it. It was like too patriotic. It was not the place for it.
In retrospect, do you think that the heat was well deserved?
No.
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 You think it's okay to talk about?
I'm a known conservative, so it's always suspicious when I start talking for the sake of America that I must be trying to sneak something over on them and politically.
They call it Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Right.
It's what they're calling it now. The media basically says you can't be a Christian and a nationalist at the same time. But if just to read a Bible verse, Psalm 33:12 says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people who he has chosen for his own inheritance."
Well, I think everybody would agree with that, of course,
Yeah, of
because that's what the
course.
Bible says. But the question is, should inside the sacred grounds of the church, should we be celebrating America when we should be focusing? Maybe people would say we should be not worshiping America or the ideals and values, and even the people who died for our country. All of that is good, but maybe some people would say that's why there's a rectory. There's a gymnasium down below where you can have those kind of moments, but maybe inside the church itself, that should be just reserved for worshiping and praising Jesus?
Well,
just a thought.
where's the rule? But
Well,
I think
maybe
I think
not.
there's a good way and a bad way to do this.
Okay.
We do know that there are Christian nuts out there who are rah-rah on everything, and they consider it part of their religion that they got the big flags out the back of their pickup truck and the Trump stickers and all that.
Yeah.
And they kind of crossbreed
Yeah.
a sense of supernationalism and mega hats and stuff with Jesus, and it's a whole package. Okay, well, all right, quiet down. I don't have, that's not me,
Yeah.
let's,
There does seem to be a resurgence in pride. We haven't seen this in a while for, outside the church. Let's just talk about America as a whole.
Right.
Whether how much it should be focused on the church, that's up for each church to determine. But it just seems like that there is more pride in the country right now. I think certainly with what happened with the bombings of the nuclear sites in Iran, I think that had a big deal with it as well. Your thoughts on it?
well, I used to feel proud that I had been born in the largest city and the most populous state in the greatest country in the world. Like somehow I was blessed, or and that just meant I was born in L.A.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But it was a curious thing to think. I knew it was a privilege.
Yeah.
It was good. We are Americans, not by somehow being chosen by God to be better than everybody.
Right.
That's not us.
Yeah.
And I think we know that. We're talking that.
When we see the suffering that takes place in different parts of the world, I always think to myself, boy, I am so lucky.
Yeah.
So lucky that I was born in the United States, and I too was born in Southern California, and granted, it's not like it was in the '60s, and I'm not sure I'd want to go back.
I was just there.
It's not the same, is it?
No.
No. Yeah.
No. I was just going to say that, America is really the only country, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm a kind of a history buff, is the only country that was really founded on basically the doctrine of the Bible. When you had people leaving England specifically for religious persecution, they came here to start a community of believers. And then if you look at the Constitution, fast forward to 1776, and the way everything worked out with the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, there was such an acknowledgement of the God of the Bible. And if you look all the way to Abraham Lincoln and what his beliefs were, it is, whether people like it or not, it was founded really basically on Christian beliefs of God's holy word. Not that everybody founding father was a Christian. No, they were not. But the surmise of it was basically a Christian foundation.
Armenia, I think, was founded as a Christian nation many centuries ago, but it didn't last long.
Right, correct.
What about Constantine?
But Constantine, he certainly more favored Christianity in the Roman Empire than anybody before
Sure.
him. All the nations of the world, though, really up till then, were founded on power. Whoever had the power got to rule. And in America, they decided not to do that, but to follow the truth.
Yeah.
So therefore, the words in Jefferson's Declaration of Independence that we hold these truths to be self-evident. It's not granted by the king. It's not given by the guy who has the most guns.
Amen.
Well, listen, happy 4th of July. Service time, normal time on
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock on Sunday over on Salem Street, St. Augustine Anglican Church. 10
We'd love to
o'clock service
welcome
time.
you. We will be nice to you.
Yes, yes. And you could even wear red, white, and blue. No problem.
That's right.
Okay, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good 4th of July. Have a safe one, too. So long.